Chapter 2. Fighting for my dream. There is a man in this room. You have been having these dreams. In these dreams, you are building towers, rather like broadcasting towers, everywhere, all over the world. God is asking me to tell you that He is the one giving you those dreams and He is going to make it happen. He has also given you a new heart. You are going to have such compassion. Please come forward if you are that man. My 5-year battle to set up Econet. The investment from the International Finance Corporation, IFC, had taken me to a completely different level. For the first time, I had real equity in the business and I was not just relying on bank loans. I had to meet tight conditions on how I conducted every aspect of my business. I now had a boss again, and they were called the board of directors. Experienced businessmen and women who took their job very seriously. My management team were well selected, a team of the best young professionals I could find in my country. They were absolutely the best. I was finally doing the kind of projects I always dreamed about. We were making money and growing fast. Although I had worked for our national telecoms company called PTC, now Tel1, since leaving them, I had not had anything to do with the telecommunications as an industry because my business was in electrical power construction work. I had, however, kept subscriptions to all my professional magazines on developments in telecoms. I knew that the mobile communication was beginning to emerge as the next frontier, and yet in Africa, there were less than 5 countries that had built such networks at the time. Most countries only had the state-owned fixed-line operators providing poor service. I wrote on our boards and I told our people, I said our mission is to provide telecommunications to all the people of Africa. I began to put together a business plan for a network in Zimbabwe. I traveled to trade shows and I visited manufacturers and operators to gain greater understanding. That was 1993. It took me more than a year of research and study to finally have a business plan. I then approached the best investment banker in the country at the time. His name was Dr. Nkosana Moyo, and he was the CEO of Standard Chartered Merchant Bank, Zimbabwe. I called my new business Enhanced Communications Network. Dr. Moyo read my business plan and his key comment was, "Can I suggest a name change? I think you should call it Econet. This was a great project. We are happy to fund it. I have put together a team to work on it. I also have the support of our head office in London. Since we would need access to special radio frequencies, we would have to approach my former employers, the public telephone operator. They were not only a monopoly, they were also the regulator. We decided that it would be best to propose that they form a joint venture with me. They could have 51% and I would have 49%. I would also raise all the funding and manage the business." The bank wrote the letter on my behalf to show them that this was a serious proposal. What happened next must surely rank among the greatest follies in the world of business. They could have owned the Econet Wireless Group, but instead they declared war on me. They told us that mobile telephony was a passing fad that would never succeed, and they were too busy with more important things. I immediately suggested that since they were not interested, could they please allocate me the necessary frequencies so that I could proceed to offer the service to the public? This time they read me the Riot Act, reminding me that they had a monopoly over everything telecoms. I refused to go away. "How can you have a monopoly over something you don't want to do?" I asked. They responded by threatening me with prosecution if I so much as tried. One of the bankers in Dr. Nkosana Moyo's office was a lawyer by the name of Ian Donovan. As we sat in their offices studying the latest reply, he pulled out the Telecommunications Act and began to take me through it. "These guys are wrong about this act. If I were you, I would approach the court and obtain a declaratory order saying you have a right to proceed." "Is it really that simple?" I asked. "Yes." "Let's go for it," I finally declared. The bank said they could not get involved in a legal battle. but wished me well. And this is how the most celebrated legal battle in the history of telecommunications in Africa began. It was to take 5 painful years. The best lawyer for this kind of case is Anthony Eastwood. He is semi-retired and only does cases that interest him. He used to defend the freedom fighters during the fight against colonialism. He is eccentric but a genius. If you can persuade him and his partners to take this case, then you have the best legal team. That was the advice of Ian Donovan, the lawyer of the bank. The team at Cantor and Immerman, the firm where Anthony was a partner, just loved the case. After brooding over it, Anthony suggested that we get a legal expert in telecoms law to advise us. We chose an American lawyer from the New York called Dr. Judith O'Neill. Easily one of the most amazing people I have ever had the privilege to know in my entire life. She was the heart and soul of the battle that was to unfold. And so the team was assembled. Anthony Eastwood, Marvin Immerman, Kanan Dube, Beatrice Mtetwa, and later Tawanda Nyambirai, Nick Rundick, and the young Joe M. McNally. At times it seemed the whole firm was just fighting one case. We just became one big family. For the presentations in court, we selected one of the greatest legal minds in our country and the region had ever produced, Advocate Adrian de Dobun. But for Dr. O'Neill, the entire legal team were all Zimbabweans. It had become that the French call a cause célèbre. For the next 6 months, I did nothing else but work on the court case. I handed over management of the company to my team. I met with the lawyers daily. And so we went to court seeking a declaratory order to state the mobile cellular telephony was not covered by the monopoly enjoyed by the PTC. On their side, the PTC assembled an impressive legal team led by Advocate Chris Anderson, who had once served as Minister of Justice. He was absolutely brilliant and I enjoyed listening to him. Even though he was on the other side, many years later we became great friends. Exactly 6 months after we filed our papers on the 24th of January 1994, the court ruled. It was January 1994. I was in South Africa on one of my spy missions, watching MTN and Vodacom roll out the first GSM networks in the South African, where I received the phone call from Zimbabwe. It was Anthony Eastwood. The High Court has declared that PTC does not have a monopoly over cell phones. They have ordered that they should give you the frequencies immediately and you can begin your business. Congratulations, you have won. Yes, I could roll out a cell phone network in Zimbabwe. However, within 2 weeks, the PTC appealed to the Zimbabwe Supreme Court. I was stopped from proceeding until this apex court could hear the case and give its ruling. 6 more months. Nigeria had been doing well in the World Cup in June 1994 and I was an avid supporter of the Green Eagles. I was watching them play Argentina when a call came that I had to be at the Supreme Court to hear the verdict on PTC's appeal the following day. The Supreme Court of Zimbabwe ruled against us and said that the monopoly of the PTC extended to cell phones. They overturned the earlier decisions of the lower court. It was over, we had lost, and there was no appeal possible. God's intervention. When we lost the Supreme Court case in June 1994, I was totally devastated. 2 years of work appeared to have gone down the drain. My dream was shattered. The lawyers made it clear that there was no appeal possible and we packed away all our files. Although 4 years earlier I had survived abduction by what I believed at the time to be divine intervention, I never pursued this further from a spiritual perspective. Church for me remained a place of funerals and wedding ceremonies. When we got married, my wife tried very hard to get me to go to church, but whilst always respectful of her values, I never went. On Sundays, I would drop her and our then young daughter at her church and go for my weekly squash game with the boys, and dutifully pick her up after the service. She was then pregnant with our second daughter. On the Sunday after our Supreme Court defeat, I was still too gutted to go and play with the boys, but I took my wife to her church as usual. She begged me to come in with her, but again, I refused. I drove around the block and decided to return. I sat at the back by myself. My wife did not know I had returned. It was the first time in my life I had listened to the church service without the compulsion of duty for an event held there. It seemed as though everyone in the room except me was so happy. The young American pastor was preaching about Jesus Christ, whom I thought I had known all my life, and yet now I realized that I did not know him. I only knew of him. Disturbed, I left hurriedly and went and sat in the car. Throughout that week, I continued in my miserable days, but I was also disturbed by what I had heard in that service. I went back the following week at the end of the service, and there was a call for those who wanted to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. I stood up and went to the front. This is and shall ever remain the most important decision of my life. Now that you are born again, you must read your Bible every day, the pastor said to the small group of us standing in front of him after he had led us in prayer. Arriving home that day, I realized that the misery of my court defeat had completely lifted. It just seemed so unimportant. Sitting down that afternoon with a borrowed copy of the New International Version Bible, I sat down to read the Bible for the very first time in my life. Since the pastor had said, read the Bible, I presumed that you must read the whole thing, cover to cover, and my wife did nothing to disabuse me of that. I just read and read and read on. Often I would read the whole day, the whole night. Finally, I finished it after about 3 weeks. What I did not tell anyone at the time, including my wife, was that almost every night I laid my head down to sleep, I would begin to have quite extraordinary dreams. One evening, I attended a special church event held at a local hotel. The pastor preaching had never met me. As he preached, he suddenly stopped. There is a man in this room. You have been having these dreams. In these dreams, you are building towers, rather like broadcasting towers, everywhere, all over the world. God is asking me to tell you that He is the one giving you those dreams, and He is going to make it happen. He has also given you a new heart. You are going to have such compassion. Please come forward if you are that man. There could have been 500 people in that room. That Sunday evening, I got up and made my way to the front of the room. A few days later, a miracle would occur, which would take us back to court in a very dramatic way. A miraculous phone call. Lancaster House was the venue in London of the negotiations to end colonial rule in the then Rhodesian, which is now Zimbabwe. It was there the first constitution to be adopted by the country was agreed at the end of 1979. There is a clause in the constitution which specifically says that every Zimbabwean shall have the right to impart information without hindrance. I was there when it was adopted. Discuss it with your lawyers. I think it could be helpful with your case. It's not over if you have the courage to go to the Constitutional Court. This scholar of yours, did he also tell you that you have to file a completely new application, one that has nothing to do with the PTC? If you want to strike out a monopoly, you have to sue the government before a special court that rarely meets, called the Constitutional Court. This was the opening remark of the advocate Adrian de Debu as we sat down in his office with my lawyers from Cantu and Imaman. We had gone there to get his legal opinion on whether a special application could be made to strike down the monopoly of the PTC to allow private companies to offer telecommunications services. He continued, I have studied Clause 20 of the Constitution very closely. I believe it is possible legally to strike down this monopoly on the basis that it is hindering freedom of expression. Our challenge is that it has never been done anywhere in the world, and there are monopolies like this everywhere, including the developed world. It was not a long meeting, and it ended by my authorizing them to start working on the papers. I asked them not to file until I was ready, and by this I meant spiritually ready, meaning weeks of prayer and fasting, until I knew the Lord wanted me to proceed. I never saw my caller after that call. He did not call me again. Then one day, more than 10 years after the call, he called me and told me he had been diagnosed with cancer. I arranged to visit him with a friend and a brother in Christ. He had specifically asked that I come and discuss my faith in Jesus Christ. Taking my Bible, I carefully took him through my own journey to believing and accepting that Jesus Christ is the Lord. I will never forget the expression on his face when he said quietly, "Yes, I believe. Yes, I believe. What shall I do?" And with that, I led him through the prayer of salvation in Jesus Christ. All along, I watched you fight. I thought it was courage. I kept saying, "This boy is courageous." But it was not really courage. Now I am beginning to understand something, he later remarked. "No, Mukoma," that is senior brother. "It was not really courage as people usually think of courage. Mine was simply an outward manifestation of what we call faith." He died peacefully a few weeks later. Something spiritual, then monopoly is struck down. The court papers had been ready to file for 2 weeks, and yet I had not authorized their filing. People who knew thought I had got cold feet. I kept praying. Those were days when I was still young in the Lord, and I was still learning, like the young Samuel, how to hear his voice. One Sunday morning, as I left a church service, I had someone call me. It was the wife of a dear friend and business colleague, Nigel Chanakira. He was following closely behind his wife. They were both excited and fighting to catch their breath. "This morning, the Lord spoke to me twice, saying, 'Tell Strive he can now go ahead.' It was such an amazing experience. I am still totally shaken." His wife chimed in, equally excited. "I was right there when he woke up twice saying he has had this amazing dream about you." Then he asked, "Do you know what it is he wants you to proceed with?" Although we were to become very close friends later, at that time, we were just beginning to know each other, and he knew nothing about the court papers waiting to be filed. "Thank you, my brother. I shall proceed immediately." We filed the following day. Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice." I believe in God, therefore I believe in miracles. When I pray, I always get an answer. Sometimes, like in this case, it can be quite dramatic, but usually it is whilst I am meditating on a scripture. After the filing, it would be 18 months of waiting until the highest court in the land delivered its judgment. During those 18 months, I went about my business. My company continued to do very well. We had become the biggest in our industry, employing over 1,000 people nationwide. I had no difficulty paying the legal fees. The court hearing was a titanic duel of legal minds before a full bench of judges called the Constitutional Court. Perhaps the nicest compliment I got that day came from the Attorney General, who led the government team. He came over, shook my hand firmly, then it was all over. "Don't let anyone tell you that you are fighting the government. Why else should we have a constitution if you, the young Zimbabweans, would not come and fight for it? By your challenge, you have strengthened our constitution." Then he added, "It does not matter what happens here. You are going to go far. One day, you will be richer than some governments." On 18th December 1995, 2.5 years after we had first gone to court, the Constitutional Court of Zimbabwe struck down the monopoly in telecommunications. As soon as the court ruled, I moved quickly to bring in equipment and organized the launch of the network. Within 2 weeks of the ruling, I had secured a shipment of a small system for just 5,000 customers from Ericsson's giant Swedish company. It was 31st January 1996, 5 weeks after the decision of the court removed the monopoly of PTC. The old man waiting to see me that evening was a legend. His name was Gary Magadzaya, and he was head of one of the most powerful farmers organizations in the land. He had asked to see me alone, and I could see from his face that he had something very grave to tell me. Having congratulated me on the court victory, he then went on to tell me that a friend of mine had set up a rival consortium and was working behind the scenes in high government circles to, as he put it, hijack your project. He went on to give me in the most elaborate detail how the conspiracy against me had all been put together. He also told me who was involved and all their plans. He has managed to lie to some very powerful people that you are working for a foreign government hostile to this country and that you should be stopped at all costs and the project given to more loyal citizens. An emergency draft legislation has been prepared which will stop what you are doing and reverse this decision of court. Not everyone is in agreement with you in this. You must not be intimidated. I know you will prevail because you believe in God. He told me he was indignant that people could create such an elaborate conspiracy of lies because of greed. They want you declared an enemy of the state and to have you imprisoned. He was so distressed by it that I found myself comforting him even when I was the one under threat. Thank you, Mukoma Gary. Once again, I marveled at how God works. This man was not my relative or even close friend. To this day, I do not know how he had obtained all the information that he gave me, including the detailed intelligence reports. Time and space constrains me to mention so many others, including people sent to arrest me, who would forewarn me and ask me to disappear for a few days. God knows them all. When a storm arose. When Mr. Gary Magadzaya finished briefing me, he had slipped a document into my hand. It was a draft document of a new law that would be announced in exactly 5 days. It would ban anyone from setting up and operating a cell phone network, even though the monopoly had been removed by the court. Violation of this proposed law would mean a jail sentence. It was about 8 p.m. as we parted company. Having thanked God for sending him, I moved swiftly that night. I first went totally unannounced to the home of our lead lawyer. I gave him the draft document. After reviewing it, whilst I sat there, he said to me, the only way I could save my project is if I could prove within 5 days that I already had a cell phone network before the new law came into force. It would allow us to go back to the Constitutional Court. Since the ruling 6 weeks earlier, I had managed to get some equipment for a small network, but it was not yet working. I would need to get it all working within 5 days. It was a daunting task. And to make matters worse, some of the critical equipment I needed was still at the border between Zimbabwe and South Africa, 500 kilometers away. After leaving the lawyer's home about 8 p.m., I called an emergency meeting of my small team. I also called one of our contractors, a gentleman called Pat Cox. He volunteered to leave for the border that very night. What he managed to do at the border remains one of the most remarkable events of the whole saga. Arriving at the border, he found that there were 23 trucks in front of our own convoy of trucks. Now, this was a border with trucks from more than 6 regional countries. Pat went to each and every trucker and spoke to them, and they agreed to let our convoy to go to the front. When Pat arrived with the trucks, we had all been up for 24 hours since Mr. Gary Magadzaya had come to see me. By this time, he found a hive of activity. I had spoken to my friends in the construction industry, and every single movable crane in the country had been released to me. My friend Krista Hohenthal, the Swedish MD of Ericsson in South Africa, had flown in a team of technicians by special charter. We worked continuously for 4 days. I never left the site. Finally, we began transmitting cell phone signals over the city of Harare. Once we had the system operating and transmitting with just one base station, I called a press conference and announced that I had a fully operational cell phone system and invited journalists to try it out. It made headlines the following morning, and on the same day, a special government gazette was published on the new law. Exhausted, we all went home knowing that our grandfather rights had been secured. That afternoon, the police arrived with engineers from the PTC to inspect my operations. They had an order to take me into custody if the system was operating, but I had switched everything off to comply with the new law. It was February 1996. We would return to court for another constitutional battle. at the end of the year. Meanwhile, I would have to face extraordinary persecution and the loss of my business and income. When the storm was lashing at our house. When the new law stopped us from proceeding with the project in February 1996, we had no option but to go back to the Constitutional Court, a process which would take almost another year. Meanwhile, my detractors turned their attention to forcing me out of business altogether. Their plan was to force me into bankruptcy. They knew that over 80% of my projects were for government. I was given an ultimatum. Drop your interest in telecoms or we will shut down all your other businesses. I was facing bankruptcy. It also meant the loss of jobs of over 1,000 people. I had to act quickly. I decided to sell all my businesses that relied on any type of government contracts. I sold my businesses within 2 weeks. This meant I was not paid the proper value of the business. I agreed to basically walk away with almost nothing. It was more important to save the business and the jobs, but it meant that 10 years of my work was all gone. I was not bitter. Meanwhile, the PTC announced that they would launch a cell phone network, now known as Net1. This would ultimately give them a 2-year head start. I was not discouraged. The lawyers asked me to come and see them. It was the senior partners of the firm, Marvin, Imaman, Harry Kantor, the Jewish Zimbabwean founders of the firm. Also present were Anthony Eastwood, Kanan Dube, and Beatrice Mtuetwa. We discussed the challenge of meeting the cost of ongoing litigation. They said they would continue to help me fight the case even if I ran out of money. A new group of young lawyers had joined the firm, and these included Tawanda Nyarambai, Nick Rundick, and Joe McNally, and they were now the mainstay of the legal battles under Anthony Eastwood's supervision. Dr. Judith O'Neill also made similar arrangements with her law firm in America. In the weeks and months to come, many other creditors either forgave my debts or deferred them until I was able to pay. At a future date, I visited each and every creditor no matter what. This was when I realized the mantra that integrity is better than money. The police called me regularly for interviews, and I would always go with one of the lawyers. It was a ritual, which they did not enjoy, and they were often very courteous, and I was never mistreated. We always had to avoid Fridays because it would mean weekend custody. On one such occasion, one of the policemen tipped me off, and I was to spend the weekend in custody. Not knowing where to go, I called Pastor Langton Gutsy and his wife. They came and collected me in a small van, and I slipped away. Hidden under a blanket, I spent a weekend at their home, and on Monday morning, I handed myself in, only to be released without charge. The persecutions instigated by the small group of powerful business people who wanted to take over my project intensified. The months ground on. My financial resources were almost gone. We still had almost 2 years to go. And we continued hard in prayer without ceasing. Now joined by almost the entire Christian community in our country. I could not walk down the street without someone shouting, "We are praying for you, hang in there." The whirlwind and the storm. In December 1996, the Constitutional Court ordered the Minister of Telecoms to end the PTC monopoly for a second time. They gave her 6 weeks to run a tender process and select an operator, or simply allow Econet to start operating. Whilst many people expected her to let us operate since we already had a system and had been fighting for nearly 5 years, I knew through my network of sympathizers that a massive conspiracy was being hatched to try and thwart us once and for all. The minister set up a technical committee, and within 2 weeks, they published a public tender. Whilst many people wondered how they had managed such an extraordinary feat in such a short time, it would all be revealed spectacularly in another court battle. We submitted a tender response along with 5 other companies. Exactly 4 weeks later, on 28 February 1997, the minister announced that another company had won the tender and was immediately issued the license. they announced that we had come fourth out of the 5 bidders, even though we had a working system on ground. The following day, the minister announced that they had complied fully with the order of the court, and she also directed that I be arrested for illegal possession of telecommunications equipment. The headline of one of the newspapers read, "Masiyiwa's dream crumbles." That morning, I received a very interesting visitor. The Lord has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. Whose report will you believe? I was sitting in my office looking at the headline for the newspaper in front of me. One paper was a picture of the jubilant head of the company that had won the license. The other headline simply said, "Masiyiwa's dream crumbles." My personal assistant told me there was a big white man wanting to see me urgently. Even before she finished telling me, he had breezed into my office uninvited and was standing in front of my desk. His name was Pastor Jerry Bacchus, an American missionary recently arrived in Zimbabwe. After introducing himself in a boomerang voice, he then told me he had come to buy cell phone service. I politely showed him the newspapers in front of me. He brushed them aside and stared down at me. Whose report will you believe? That or the Lord's? I am here to buy service and I would like to pay for 12 months. He slowly poured out $10,000 in crisp banknotes on my table. I told my personal assistant to call Zach Wazara, then our chief marketing officer. I directed him to count the money and register our first customer. I understood what was happening spiritually, and I knew that something miraculous was about to take place. Then came the intervention of Vice President Joshua Nkomo. The audacity of faith. When Pastor Jerry Bacchus left our office, invigorated, I turned my attention to our next move. Due to a sad family tragedy, Anthony Eastwood had been forced to retire as our lead counsel. A young Christian lawyer at the company called Tawanda Nyambirai was now leading our team. Over the years, I had the privilege to work with great lawyers from all around the world. But I say this with humility. Tawanda Nyambirai has one of the finest legal minds I have ever met. He proposed that we should avoid going back to the Constitutional Court, but instead go to a lower court, the High Court, and seek a judicial review of the minister's decision, since it was a public tender. We had to act very quickly, otherwise our matter would not be accepted as urgent by the courts. We also needed evidence to show that there had been bias against Econet. We did not have any evidence whatsoever. To get this evidence, Tawanda came up with a strategy whereby all the documents used by the adjudicating committee that advised the minister had to be seized and sealed by court order. This had to be done before anyone was ordered to destroy them. Tawanda and his team made a special application to the court, and it was granted. They then rushed, quite literally, with the sheriff of the court to the place where the committee had been holding meetings and seized all the documents that had been left in the room. It was audacious and caught everyone by surprise. It all happened in just one day and less than 48 hours after the license award to our competitor. The chairman of the technical committee, as it was called, kept a pile of documents in a locked drawer next to where he sat. Amongst the documents were found correspondences he had been receiving by fax from someone in South Africa, directing him on how to manipulate the results of the tender. We would later present this all in court and use it to overturn the recommendation of that committee. Meanwhile, I had to deal with a very furious minister who could not believe what had happened. She ordered my immediate arrest. I arrived at my office the following morning knowing that I was due to be picked up by the police. I did not try to run away, and I did not try to lobby anyone. Our sources said they were preparing a charge sheet against me to ensure I got a lengthy jail sentence. I waited. Fear not, I am with you. The call from the office of the Vice President of the country, Joshua Nkomo, came in the afternoon. It came completely out of the blue. The meeting with Joshua Nkomo. Joshua Nkomo is one of the fathers of African nationalism and stands alongside Africa's greatest fighters against colonialism and injustice. He is right up there with the greatest of them. He was the epitome of courage. Although he was in his 80s, he had still kept much of the huge fame, which was one of his distinguishing features. He also had a quick temper. Even as I entered his office in the central government offices, he shouted loudly at me, "What are all these bad things I hear being said about you, young man?" I stood there frozen at first. Then he gestured to me with his walking stick and pointed at the door, telling me to shut it. I then sat down on a chair in front of his desk. "Baba," I said in a quiet voice, "you do not believe that, do you?" He stared at me for a few moments, then he shook his head slowly. "No, I don't. But let me hear your side of the story." He listened quietly and intently, occasionally asking sharp questions. It was clear that he had been well briefed about it. I also realized that the shouting had been for the people outside the room to hear, as there were always large numbers of people in his reception. He was a very shrewd man. I shared with him pretty much all that you all know now, including my deep faith and trust in God. I even shared with him some of my testimonies. He wanted to know everything. Finally, he rose up and asked me to stay where I was sitting. Initially, I thought he had gone to the bathroom, but he was gone for what seemed like an hour. I just sat there and prayed. When he returned, he slumped himself in the chair and began muttering audibly to himself. I heard everything that he said. He looked deeply concerned and shook his head several times. After a few minutes, he asked me to walk out of the office with him. We walked out slowly, together into the bright African sunlight. He insisted that I walk by his side. He wanted people to see me walking with him, and I escorted him along the corridors to his waiting car. Several people, seeing me walking with him, came nervously out of their offices and also shook my hand or patted my back. Others just stared. On a number of occasions, he said loudly to people who came up to greet us, "This one is not a sellout. He is a true son of Zimbabwe." People loved him. The persecution against me ended that day. Victory in court. It was 30th December 1997. I had traveled with Pastor Dom Dushele and the leaders of our church to Boston in the United States to try and raise money for a hospital. Nearly 3 months had gone by since our last court appearance. It had been a dramatic hearing. We had shown the judge how the technical committee chairman had manipulated the tender results using the evidence we had got from the seized papers. Although it had been 9 months since the intervention of the Vice President, Joshua Nkomo, no one had persecuted me. There was now a new minister in charge of telecommunications, and although the court battle had gone on, he was very friendly. He told me that the government would accept whatever ruling came from the judicial review if it was in my favor. Several other leading political figures had now also expressed support for me publicly. A former Minister of Justice and member of Cabinet, Dr. Edson Zivobgo, had given a public lecture on the importance of the original Supreme Court ruling. No one knew until today, as I write, that he was the one who had tipped me off about the constitutional provision that led me to court in the first place. He was the man I led to the Lord just before he died of cancer several years later. Zimbabwe's other Vice President, Simon Mozeda, sent me a wonderful message through a former freedom fighter whom he knew prayed with us. He commended me for my faith, saying it had taught him something about God. The night of 30th December 1997 in Boston will forever be one of the most incredible spiritual experiences of my life. As I slept, I had a dream, and in it I saw a judge sitting down to read a ruling. It was so vivid. And one thing I distinctly remembered was that the judge was white, and all our lawyers were there, and were the lawyers of the company that had been awarded the tender. The judge was very angry and declared that the courts were upset that this case kept coming back to them. He then declared Econet licensed and said it would never be overturned. I woke up to find that it was about 2 a.m. To be honest with you, I do not really care much for dreams even today, and I always caution on taking dreams seriously unless you have really prayed. After some time of prayer, I called my colleague Zach Wazara in Harare on the hotel phone. I asked him to inquire of our lawyers if there had been any developments. He called back a few minutes later to say that Tawanda Nyambirai had told him that the courts were closed for the holidays until mid-January. After Zach's call, I got dressed and then began to pray again, and I was now unable to sleep. About 30 minutes or so later, the phone rang. It was Zach Wazara. Justice Sandura's clerk has just summoned all the lawyers to court. Apparently, he has been promoted to the Supreme Court from the High Court. He has been working during the holiday to clear his High Court cases. He is about to hand down the ruling. Justice Sandura overturned the award of the license to the company and declared us duly licensed. It was an emphatic court victory. A few days later, the company, whose license had been cancelled by Justice Sandura, made an urgent court application seeking to set aside the ruling pending their appeal against it. To the Supreme Court, this would have to be heard urgently by the duty judge the following day. Justice George Smith was one of the few white judges in the country, and he was the duty judge. He declared that the order given by Justice Sandura was above appeal, and he was confirming an order already given by the Constitutional Court. There was no court in the land that could overturn it. The new Minister of Telecommunications called me and congratulated me on the outcome. He said the cabinet had given its support and he was looking forward to working with us. I briefed our pastor and he called other church leaders across the country. We agreed to have a special Thanksgiving service. It would be attended a few months later by virtually every single church leader. It was an amazing event. On my arrival back in Zimbabwe, I went to Vice President Dr. Joshua Nkomo. I went with several leaders of the church, including Pastor Franz, who prayed for him in flawless Shona. Tawanda Nyambirai was deeply affected by what we have now come to know as the Boston Vision, as I described to him the details of the proceedings I had seen on the phone before they occurred. I like to think of it as our Heavenly Father's own way of signing off. And that's the end of chapter 2.